Imagine you're walking down the street, minding your own business, when suddenly a piece of metal comes crashing down from the sky and smashes your head. You'd be dead in an instant. Sounds like a freak accident, right? Wrong. It could be a SpaceX Starlink satellite. And it could happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. This video might save your life. It's better to keep watching. You never know. First of all, do you know what Starlink is? It's a project by SpaceX, the company run by Elon Musk, the guy who has more money than sense and more ideas than time. He wants to give everyone in the world super fast internet by launching thousands of tiny satellites into low Earth orbit. Sounds awesome, right? Well, not so fast. Some people have some issues with Starlink, like for example the fact that it's creating a lot of space junk that could damage other satellites or fall back to Earth. It's also spoiling the beauty of the night sky, making it look like a disco ball. And here's the big part. It could potentially destroy us suddenly. Yes, you heard that right. With the space debris. How fun is that? Well, it's no fun to live in fear of getting smashed by space debris. I get it. Who wants to be a cosmic target practice? So who's in charge of making sure that SpaceX doesn't kill us with all their Starlink satellites? Well, that would be the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. They are the ones who give permission and rules for commercial space activities in the US, like launching and landing satellites. They have done some math and figured out how risky it is to have so many satellites in low Earth orbit, especially Starlink. They've used data from old satellites that came back to Earth, like Iridium, which was a similar project of communication satellites that worked from 1997 to 2019. And they have also calculated that by 2035, there will be 28,000 dangerous pieces of metal falling from the sky every year from big satellite groups, and that the chance of someone getting hurt or killed by them would be 0.6 per year. That means that every 2 years, someone on Earth would win the worst lottery ever and get smashed by a piece of satellite junk. And guess what? Most of that junk would come from Starlink. The FAA says that Starlink satellites are responsible for 85% of this risk, because they have more satellites than anyone else, and because they're bigger and heavier than other satellites. Sorry, Elon. So how did SpaceX react to this report? Well, they weren't exactly thrilled. They fired back with a letter to the FAA that basically said, "You've got it all wrong, and our satellites are like the James Bond of space debris. They vanish without a trace." In this cheeky letter, SpaceX argued that the report's analysis is as accurate as a weather forecast from a groundhog. They said that Starlink satellites are made to be sneakier than a spy, as they burn up completely when they come back to Earth. SpaceX also pointed out that the report relied on data as ancient as the Stone Age, specifically from Iridium satellites. These Iridium satellites are like the older, heavier cousins at the family reunion. SpaceX proudly mentioned that they've safely retired over 350 Starlink satellites, without a single one causing a commotion on its way down. They also explained that they care a lot about safety, using cool technology, moving their satellites around using things that make them slow down, and even chatting with other space folks to make sure everything is peaceful up there. The letter finished with SpaceX saying that they want both the safety and the success of the Starlink project, and inviting the FAA for a nice talk over some space coffee. So, who is right here? Is SpaceX really creating a death trap in space, or is the FAA exaggerating the danger? Well, it's a bit like being in the middle of a galactic poker game, without knowing all the cards in play. The truth is, space is quickly turning into a traffic jam. That is for sure. Right now, there are over 5,000 active satellites up there. And that's not all. There's an armada of satellites in the pipeline, set to blast off by different companies and nations. There are also millions of bits of space trash moving around at super speeds that could smash into each other or the working satellites and make more mess. This whole situation is like the Kessler syndrome. Imagine a space domino effect. where crashes keep on happening, and future orbits become as crowded as the mall on Black Friday. The fallout? A possible space disaster that could mess up everything from our GPS and weather reports to scientific research and even your Netflix binge watching. Not to mention, future space travel could get even more like a cosmic game of dodgeball. The Kessler syndrome was proposed by NASA scientist Donald J. Kessler in 1978. He basically saw a future where satellites would bump into each other, spawning a whole army of space fragments. These fragments, they'd become troublemakers, increasing the chances of even more mega collisions. Think of it like a space game of dominoes. One collision sets off another and then another, until it's a big mess up there. Avoiding it? Well, good luck with that. But how likely is this space domino dance to kick off? Well, the experts have their eyes on the sky, and they think it might have already started. They're pointing to some cosmic blunders that have recently made our space surroundings more crowded. Back in 2007, China did an anti-satellite test, creating over 3,000 space crumbs by blowing up a weather satellite. Then in 2009, we had the ultimate satellite crash when an Iridium communications satellite
involving two satellites is to blame. One, a Russian Cosmos satellite, the other, an American communications satellite,
decided to bump into a retired Russian one, making over 2,000 new space buddies. Fast forward to 2019, when India joined the space party with an anti-satellite test, breaking a satellite into over 400 pieces. These space boo-boos haven't just added to our space junk pile, they've also increased the chances of more space collisions and a galactic traffic jam. But how bad is the space clutter situation really? Now, there are some space watchers who have a gloomy outlook. They say the Kessler syndrome is like a runaway train of doom, and sooner or later we're gonna lose our best spots in space. It's like all the front row seats at a Beyoncé concert being taken. Except these are space orbits and the show is whatever satellites are doing up there. So what can we do to stop this madness? Well, we have some ideas, but they're not very easy or cheap. We could try to track and monitor the debris better, make some rules and laws for space activities, build satellites that last longer and don't break down, or invent some cool gadgets to clean up the junk. But these solutions need a lot of teamwork and money, and they might not be enough to save us from the worst case scenario, a space apocalypse. Maybe we should also think about why we're doing this in the first place. Do we really need so many satellites in orbit? Do we really need to colonize Mars? Or are we just being nosy and greedy and ruining our planet and our future? Maybe we should think twice before we launch more stuff into space and make more space junk. Because one day it might come back to bite us. Literally. But hey, don't let me spoil your mood, space is still awesome. And there are so many amazing things to learn and explore. And I know just the place where you can find them. Why not check out our other videos? Wouldn't you want to know how NASA and SpaceX are going to colonize Mars? How black holes feast on stars? Or how AI can make space exploration a piece of cake? All these topics and more are waiting for you to click. But hold on, before you go and watch these mind-blowing videos, I've got something fun to share. Are you ready? Here it is. If you enjoyed this video, please give that thumbs up button a click, share it with your friends, and become part of our space community by subscribing and hitting the notification bell. I know it might sound like a cliche, but it's a big boost for us. Thanks for sticking around. See you soon for more fantastic space videos.